Someone actually wrote, "Are you a millionaire as of yet?" Yeah, no, is the answer. You have your Instagram up and running, you've got your accounts in order, and everything is kind of flying. You know how it's going to work. Do not launch until you have those done, because essentially that's kind of like pre-ejaculating. You know, it's a big hype, but then it's a flop at the end. So this episode of Managed is going to be completely different. It's a little bit outside of my comfort zone, so we're just going to see what happens. But we've done a Q&A. I thought it'd be really nice to answer people's questions for anything involved talent management, starting your own business, building a business. I know it can be really, really daunting. I started HLD at 24 after I dropped out of university. I left my full-time job. I really was not sure how I would make money. And it's been an experience. I think people see the amazing things you do online and no one really talks about the nitty-gritty in between. So I put out a Q&A on my Instagram on HLDs, and I'm going to read out the best questions and give answers that I think is what I've lived by. Hopefully find some insight to them. Okay, so we're going to start with some of the first questions. Someone actually wrote, "Are you a millionaire as of yet?" Yeah, no, is the answer. Do I need to go to university? It depends what you want to do. I think if you want to be a doctor, right, of course you have to go to university. Accountant, yes. Lawyer, yes. In terms of what I do, I don't necessarily think you do need to go to university. I did 3 years of a 4-year degree. I don't think I've necessarily taken anything that I've learned from that degree and put it into this job or even owning a business. I don't think anything will ever prepare you to running a business. You know, actually, the best advice I can give if you want to start your own business is do not be scared to ask for help. I think for a long time, I was so proud that I never wanted to ask for help. And only when I started and I started putting myself out there and realizing not everyone is your competition, did I really see my business start to grow and succeed. You know, university as well was really fun. Like, I had the best time. And if I could go back, I would definitely go back to university. But it wasn't my calling card. It's not what I ended up ever doing. So that question, I think, is actually an individual answer. I don't think you need to go to university to run a management company, to work in marketing, anything like that. I think experience is key, but it's always fun to go. You don't get many opportunities to be young, fun, and have no bills or any responsibilities. Building a portfolio and how to approach people with your service professionally, please. So it's an interesting one to answer because it depends what service you're in, because you haven't specified. How I began working on my own, I wanted to make extra money around my full-time job. So I put together, I guess, a small portfolio of things I was doing for that company, which was social media at the time and some talent management. So I had the understanding of both sides of the industry. Well, what I felt was an understanding compared to probably what I know now. I was very much entry level, and I was going to small companies and offering my services for free, because then you're getting your name out there, people are talking, and it's actually referrals. When you're starting out, word of mouth is so crucial. I think people assume you start an Instagram page to put your services on, it's just going to boom. It's not. You really need to look at some of those smaller marketing factors. You know, essentially, if you're doing marketing, if you can't market yourself, how on earth could you market another business? But Instagram is a really interesting tool. It's something you can use to your benefits. Obviously, there's like new different ways of doing things now. TikTok is an ally. The algorithm works to your advantage. If I was Whitney's manager, so obviously we managed Whitney from Love Island. If I was Whitney's manager, this is what I would be doing. We did see those things and we found them really interesting. And some of those things I completely agreed with. Some I didn't necessarily, but those people might not have thought they'd ever hit that market of either hitting Whitney's account or my account. And that is like the power of social media. So being able to showcase your portfolio, and eventually people will start taking interest, but you have to earn your stripes. Time is the thing that will be on your side on that. It will take time. You need to be consistent. So I think in terms of approaching people professionally as well, draft an email, get people to check it. The one thing I will never answer back to people who have not put together a well-written email. The biggest red flags for me are if you can't even get my company name right. HLD, I wouldn't say is the hardest company name. You'd be absolutely gobsmacked how many people email saying, "Hi, I've been a big fan of HDLs for such a long time." My heart breaks every time. So it's doing that fact checking, that copywriting. That is the thing that is going to, really stand out. I really love people who've also messaged me and shown that hustle ability. Obviously, everyone knows the story about how Ella got her job here. Well, Honey, who is our new social media manager, she very much did the same thing. She listened and now she works here. How much to budget for employee salaries? Okay, so this one's a really interesting question for me because it's something that I have to look at all the time. We just did a massive expansion of the business in terms of, for a small business, we've gone to a mid-sized business and we've hired quite a lot of people. It's something that people mention all the time. Oh, you're always hiring. There was a need for it. Firstly, when you're are you hiring for the sake of hiring because you want to look like you're bigger than you are, or are you hiring because there is a need? I will never take on new talent until I've hired, because I don't think it's fair on the talent. Obviously, like I said, it's a very different kind of structure of business. But in terms of, you should be checking your P&L to make sure that your budget's aligned. That's how we budget it. So we'll look at our P&L from the year before, and it's hard because we have grown substantially. So we'll compare the last 6 months. We also look at, in terms of how much money that talent manager could bring in, to work out that salary as well. It is a completely different structure, but also you need to be comparing it to what people are paying on the current market. That is also very important. What are your competitors paying? You have to be on par. You can't be offering an extremely low salary and expect to get the best of what you get, and there's different structures you can put in place as well. So if you're a small business and you're hiring for the first time, things I would do is put different incentives in. So, this is the base salary, but if you hit this much, we can give you this much commission, because we physically, when we started, did not have the money to pay people what you would want to pay them. Do you feel it's beneficial to work within someone else's operation before starting? 100%. I didn't have the most experience before, so actually, I guess it's like kettle black. I think that's the saying. But I did still have a year of talent management, or 2 years talent management underneath my belt, and a few years of marketing under my belt. And I had also worked free for a lot of different companies. So you understand, it's a lot to do with different cultures. My grandma has always taught me, you learn from your parents how not to parent. I feel like you can also re-put that into another way of, you learn from other companies how you don't want to run your company. You learn from other bosses how you don't want to lead your team. I think there's some really important things. You can take the best bits, but also be really aware of the things that did not motivate you, did not put you forward. And I think as well, what I know now, I did not know at all, a few years ago. And it's so invaluable. You're learning from other people who are experts in their industry. That is so valuable. And you become so full of knowledge that, you go into your next project, whether it's a new company or your own company, with an army of tools that you did not have before you started that other business. How can you begin a business when you've never worked in the industry before? I think even if it's work experience, definitely get a few months, few years, get some knowledge behind your belt, because knowledge is power at the end of the day. How on earth could you run anything without even knowing about your competitors, and even seeing how they run a business? I find fascinating. I spoke to one of my friends who runs a business the other day. He does production, and he was like, I would love it if we swapped to see how we each run things differently. And I think that's a really interesting concept. We all do things completely differently. There's a reason their business succeeds in that sense, and the reason mine succeeds in my sense. But it's the reason that I think we've succeeded so well is because when my new staff come in, I sit there and go, what are the things that you loved about the last company you worked at and that we don't do here? And what are the things that you didn't like, and that we can ensure that we don't do them? And how can you bring that into another business if you haven't done that prior? The basics. Quite vague, but I did say on starting a business. So the basics, how did I start a business? I use like a third party. And I actually found them quite interesting. So essentially they'll set it up for you on Company's House. They'll give you a fake address so you can get posts there, so you seem a bit more legit. And I think mine was like a Wenlock House or Wenlock Road address in London. So you didn't have to put your home address out there. I found that a really useful tool. I think it's something to always look into, especially if, you never want people to know where you live. I think you should have your privacy. The first thing you should do is get your accounts in check. Make sure you've got a accounting software. Xero is what we use alongside our accountants. So when we started, we had one accountant, and obviously as you get bigger, that will change. So we've got 3 accountants, a bookkeeper. They all do different things now. So you've got like payroll and all those different processes that you never had before. But when you start, you want to make sure straight away you've got a basic accountant who can help you with your tax, especially if you go into that VAT bracket. Make sure that your bookkeeping's up to scratch. Going back through and redoing that from, if you're 2 years in, sounds like pain to me. Instagram, get that set up. Realistically, before you launch, and I say this to everyone, have all your ducks in order and then go and launch. Because if you launch and you have not got all your basics in order of like accounting, make sure that you're not, you're in line with the things you should be doing. and you've got a strategy for how your business is moving. You've got a company name at least. You don't necessarily need a website at first. I know that is a luxury to have. You have your Instagram up and running. You've got your accounts in order and everything is kind of flying. You know how it's going to work. Do not launch until you have those done, because essentially that's kind of like pre-ejaculating. It's a big hype, but then it's a flop at the end. What are your biggest mistakes getting to where you are? How long you got? I think some of the biggest mistakes I've made is probably not having things in order, from the beginning. It took me a while to kind of get into a process. All the mistakes I've made, I'd probably do them again, because how would I learn otherwise? I think sometimes I've been too trusting. I've been too loyal to people who maybe weren't as loyal. How do you view money? What does it represent to you? Oh, interesting. Listen, money makes the world go round. Money is very much a byproduct of running a business. And I do think it's annoying when people say they don't do it for the money. And I am one of those people, because I genuinely love my job, but it is a luxury to say that you have to make money to be able to say those things. When you run a business, you very much do it because you want to make money. People need to be a bit more honest about that. In terms of how I view money, I view it in different ways. I view it as in freedom to be able to run my business the way I want to run it. I view money as an absolute privilege that we are in a position where people pay us for our services and pay our talent. How to keep your employees longer than 1 or 2 years. Incentives. I swear to God, this is the best investment you will ever make, is incentivizing your staff. I think allowing your staff to be good at their job and, go to the meetings they need to go to. Don't try and cage them. I think that's the one thing I'm very good at, is allowing my staff to have freedom within their job and trusting that they are good at their job to be able to do those things. We put certain incentives in for our staff. We have employee of the month, and it goes towards a voucher towards your Selfridges. And at the end of the year, we total them up and they get them towards their Christmas. We put £100 into everyone's travel every month, because I know that you don't necessarily have to be in the office to do a good job anymore. And I would like my staff to be in. So that is an incentive. Come in, have fun, enjoy your time. Work shouldn't be just a 9 to 5 and then you die. And, we do staff team days out. We have parties, incentivizing your staff. And, if you don't have huge budgets to do that, go to the local pub, go for a coffee, do those little things where you don't even have to speak about work, turn your phone off. There are loads of different things, play games. There is so many things that you can do to make sure that the culture in your office is really positive and happy. And that is, I think, key to holding on to staff. Them enjoying their job alone is not good enough anymore. There is so many exciting things companies are doing, and you've got to keep with the times, otherwise you fall behind. I really enjoyed that episode. It's completely different, very out of my comfort zone. I'm just staring at a lens. It's so not me. But if you have any more questions, or even if you have any opinions of the answers, we'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Managed. If you loved watching, please make sure you're following us so you can receive updates on our next episode. I'll see you next week.